Okay, so we got a storm to talk about here for this weekend. Instead of me just posting a million images, I thought, hey, it might be better just to try to make a video. This is my first time using this software, so uh, hope it goes well. Basically, what we have is a storm system this weekend where we have an overrunning event, which is what has been occurring recently with systems coming out of the southwest, running into cold air supplied by Arctic highs, and basically it's been cold enough for snow over the last several storms that we've had recently on Sunday and then on Tuesday. Now, there are some subtle differences between what is going on this time versus what happened with the last ones. Last ones we just had overrunning precipitation coming straight up the coast, and it was cold enough for snow. This is starting out a little bit further to the southwest, and what you have is a low pressure, a weak low pressure that comes out, and it can only get so far into the Ohio Valley here, and then it stops. Low pressures like to take the path of least resistance, and what happens is it runs into a block, and then it transfers its energy to the coast, and then the storm bombs and heads out. Problem with that in regards to weather forecasting and what makes these storms a little bit more tricky is if you're on the right side of the track, as we will be initially, first warm air comes up along that side. So you have a situation where it might be cold enough to snow at the start, but then as warmer air moves in aloft on the right side of the storm, or right side of that track, it changes to ice and then eventually rain if enough warm air comes, and if the storm tracks far enough north, the primary storm that is, before it transfers its energy. So moving along. So this is just a satellite water vapor imagery. You can see the beginnings of our system down here in the desert southwest, northern Mexico, Texas. Again, that's going to come out, and the primary low will die. New low takes over, heads out. Now, this is a little bit of what I was talking about in regards to warmer temperatures. Over the last couple of days, the models have been going back and forth in regards to if it would be cold enough for snow, where does that energy transfer take place, and initially what it was looking like was that the primary low would stay stronger for a while and then transfer its energy over, but it would be too late, and all this warm air would flood in on this side here. And that would result in snow being kept mostly to the north in New England. But models have a tendency to underplay cold air, and as we had the computer model runs come in last night, they're beginning to coalesce. They're not bouncing back and forth anymore, and they're starting to, as we get closer to the event, they're starting to see the colder air, and that it will remain locked in place, and also that the primary low coming out into Ohio will only be able to come so far, and it's resulting in a further south transfer. If this would have stayed true, what you would have had this weekend was, again, snow to the north, and then we would have had like a mix, maybe an inch or two, and then some sleet, freezing rain, and then we probably would have went over to rain. However, again, the computer models are starting to change their tune, and they're starting to gravitate towards a colder solution. Here are your sources of cold air, high pressures coming in, coming out of northwest Canada, heading this direction. That is prime location for snow in our area. Here's the low pressure coming out, and then I'll just go forward here with a couple of these images model-wise. Here you have your low pressure, you have your high pressure, 1036, that's pretty high. To get, that's your cold source. In order to get a decent snowstorm, you want at least 1020. This is 1036, backed up by a 1034, and then a 1030 out here. So there is plenty of cold that keeps coming. There's a 1032 way up there. Obviously, if you've been outside recently, it's pretty cold. So the high pressure train of cold air continues and will be in place. So here we go. You see the low pressure here, and this is what I was talking about. It's sort of bubbling up into Ohio, but it can't go because of the high pressure here. It's blocking it. So the low pressure is beginning to, you see this bubble out in down to the southeast, and what you have is you have snow in our area, and you have rain down here, and there's a little bit of mixing in between. And going further along, again, the primary is beginning to die here. Low pressure beginning to take hold down here in South Carolina. 1036 high, perfect spot, and I'll keep going here in motion. I apologize. Low pressure strengthening off the coast. High pressure still in a good spot, supplying cold air. It is close enough that there is some mixing going on here. This is the GFS, which is the American computer model, and I'm going to get into some of the differences between the two models, different models that are out there in a second. It still is the warmest solution out there, so it's showing this mix in our region here, basically along the Mason-Dixon line, southeast PA, up into New York City, big snows up into New England. And last shot, I believe, yeah, this is the low, obviously getting real strong. They're going to hammer southeast Canada there, New Brunswick, and then obviously we still have our cold air coming in. So instead of that solution where, the mix is now a little bit further south. I mean, yes, it's still edging into southeast PA, but actually, more snowy look for Pennsylvania as a whole, and any change to rain is looking less and less likely in our region. And moving right along, getting into some of the different models and what they're showing snowfall-wise. This is the European model, which is the gold standard when it comes to snow forecasting in the winter. Sometimes you will see this used as an also computer on TV. The forecasters on television typically use the GFS, the American models. Occasionally they'll throw in the Euro, but I mean, basically what you're looking at here, as you can see, in regards to the Lehigh Valley, Reading area, you got 5-6 inches of snow, basically holding true in southeast PA on the suburbs of Pennsylvania, southern suburbs of Philadelphia, that is. Around 4 inches in Philly, 5 in New York, and then basically any areas where there's mixing is to the south, and that can be seen, pretty clearly once you get south of Newark, Delaware, I'd say, and obviously Baltimore. So that's the Euro. This is the Canadian last night. The Canadian model is one that's not shown on TV, not used generally by forecasters. This model has been pretty aggressive in regards to snow totals, because as you can see here, southeast PA is kind of like the bullseye, except for obviously once you get up to New England and Boston, but you're talking about 6 to maybe 10 inches of snow, maybe 6 to 9 in this region, and then you're getting closer to a foot once you get into New England. So that's the Canadian. This is the American model, the GFS. This is the one that TV forecasters use. National Weather Service generally uses this one. Sometimes they'll throw in the Euro and some other stuff. But here you can see, I mean, even still, this is a colder look than it had recently. It's still showing a good 4 to 6 inches in our vicinity, northwest of Philly, and then into east central PA. And then 6-inch amounts, 6 to 10 inch amounts for once you get into northwest New Jersey into southern New England. This model is the NAM, which is not a long-range model. It's more of a short-range model. It goes out to 84 hours, but generally speaking, anything after 60 hours is kind of taken with a grain of salt. But the forecasters use this on TV, so I thought I'd throw it in at this point. This is actually the newest run, just came in, and it is much colder. Previously, when I was looking at yesterday's run in the afternoon and the evening, heavy snow, the 6-inch line was way up here, and it actually has now pushed into our region, at least into like Berks County area. And you're getting more than 3 inches in Philly here. This model was showing next to nothing in Philly earlier today or yesterday. Now this model does have a warm bias, and again, we're sort of on the outside or the outer edge of its range. 60 hours is where we start to kind of pay attention to it. It's at 69 hours out, so just take it for what it's worth there. So basically, when it comes to Saturday, what we're going to have is the storm system again come out. Cold air will be in place, and it's looking primarily snowy now. There might be a change to some mixed precipitation, sleet, freezing rain for a bit. I seriously doubt a change to rain at this point. And again, it'll be starting in the morning, and it'll last into the afternoon and evening. It's not going to be like a screaming afterburner kind of storm like Tuesday was, when it just was in and out in a few hours. This is going to last a little longer. Hopefully, the intensity isn't there as much. In regards to snow totals, I don't like to get into that game this early, but generally speaking, 3 to 6 inches is a good bet. I'm thinking there's probably going to be more. There is an X factor here in regards to the cold air that's in place, that's being funneled in, and that's cold air aloft. There's snow ratios. Typically, they're 10 to 1 when it comes to snowstorms, but the cold air mass that's been in place for so long, the colder it is, the more liquid expands, and what you can have is higher snow ratios. And that might be the case where there's 12 to 1 or 15 to 1, in which case, storms that would be dropping 6 inches are instead dropping 10 inches. So that's an X factor that'll need to be paid attention to. But, at this point, I think it's still a little too early to get into the fine details of it. But more than a 3-inch snowstorm is likely. Probably more closer to 6 inches once away from Philadelphia. So that's what I'm thinking right now. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up. I'll probably do another one of these later tonight.